What if I told you that most of your stress, most of your hesitation, most of the anxiety you carry silently every day is not coming from life itself, but from imaginary courts inside your head where you are constantly on trial, judged by people who are barely paying attention? Think about that for a moment. How many decisions have you delayed because you were afraid of what someone might think? How many versions of yourself have you silenced to avoid disapproval? The Stoics saw this clearly, long before social media, long before likes, comments, and constant comparison. They understood something modern people are still struggling to accept. Other people's opinions only control you if you agree to carry them. And most people carry them everywhere. Marcus Aurelius once reflected, not to impress anyone, but to remind himself, "I do my duty, the rest does not disturb me." That sentence alone holds more freedom than most people experience in a lifetime. Because here's the hard truth, and this is where retention matters, so stay with me. If you care too much about what others think, you are living someone else's life. You are reacting instead of choosing, performing instead of becoming, managing perception instead of mastering character. And the Stoics would call this a form of slavery. Not chains on your body, but chains on your mind. Let me ask you something, and pause the video if you need to. When was the last time you felt completely free to be yourself, without rehearsing, without explaining, without defending? Most people can't remember, because from childhood we're trained to seek approval. Approval from parents, teachers, friends, bosses, strangers. Eventually, we confuse approval with safety, but the Stoics separated the two. Epictetus, who was born a slave and later became one of the freest thinkers in history, taught this: "If you want to be free, do not wish to control what you cannot." And nothing is more uncontrollable than what others think. Here's where Gemini and YouTube pay attention. Clarity matters. There are two worlds you live in. One is internal, your thoughts, values, intentions, actions. The other is external, opinions, reactions, praise, criticism. Stoicism teaches that peace comes when you stop confusing these two worlds. Most people collapse them into one. They feel insulted because someone disapproves. They feel successful because someone applauds. They feel worthless because someone ignores them. The Stoic does none of that. The Stoic asks one question only: did I act according to my principles? If the answer is yes, everything else is noise. Let this sink in. You don't need to be liked to be right. You don't need validation to be aligned. You don't need permission to live honestly. And yet, your mind may be arguing with me right now. That's normal, because caring about what others think feels like protection. It feels like staying connected. It feels like belonging. But the Stoics warned us, what feels like protection often becomes a cage. Here's a scenario. Imagine this clearly. You walk into a room. People glance at you. Some smile. Some don't. Immediately, your mind starts working. Did I say something wrong? Do they respect me? Do I look confident? Do I belong here? The Stoic notices this and steps back mentally, not with arrogance, not with detachment from humanity, but with awareness. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "I have power over my mind, not outside events." Notice what he didn't say. He didn't say he could control others' reactions. He didn't say he could force respect. He didn't say he could manage reputation. He said mind. And that is the first Stoic rule you must understand, the foundation of everything that follows in this series. If your self-worth depends on others' opinions, you have handed them authority over your emotions. That is not strength. That is dependency. And dependency creates fear. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being judged. Fear of standing alone. The Stoics trained themselves to stand firm even when misunderstood, especially then, because truth does not need applause. Now, quick engagement moment. This matters for reach. Pause and comment this below if it resonates. I choose inner approval over outer validation. This tells YouTube this video matters to real people, and more importantly, it tells you something about yourself. Let's go deeper. Most people think Stoicism is about not caring. That's wrong. Stoicism is about caring correctly, caring about your character, your discipline, your integrity, not your image. Image is fragile. Character is durable. Image changes depending on the room. Character stays the same in every room. And this is why Stoics appear calm, grounded, unshaken. They are not numb. They are not cold. They are rooted. Imagine a tree. Storms come, wind howls, people shout. The tree doesn't argue with the storm. It doesn't beg for approval from the wind. It simply stays rooted. That is Stoic strength. In the next part, we're going to break down the first Stoic rule that permanently weakens the power of judgment over you and why most people misunderstand it completely. Before you move on, do this one thing. If this video is helping you think more clearly, like it and subscribe. This channel is for people who want freedom of mind, not popularity. And remember this as we continue. You don't need to be seen to be solid. You need to be solid to stop caring about being seen. Most people don't realize this, but the fear of other people's opinions isn't really about them. It's about identity. At some point in life, you quietly start asking a dangerous question before you act. Not out loud, but internally. What will they think? And once that question becomes a habit, freedom slowly disappears. The Stoics noticed this thousands of years ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote something close to this idea. If you live according to other people's judgments, you will never live according to your own. Think about that for a moment. If your sense of worth depends on approval, then your peace depends on people you cannot control. And that is not strength. That is quiet captivity. Now here's the Stoic shift that changes everything. You don't need to stop caring completely. You need to care selectively. Because not all opinions are equal, and most opinions are noise. Let me explain. Every day, people judge without context. They judge your tone, not your intention, your outcome, not your effort, your moment, not your journey. They don't see your discipline. They don't see your restraint. They don't see the battles you didn't fight. And the Stoics would say, why would you hand your inner peace to people who don't even know the full story? Here's the first habit you must internalize if you want freedom from other people's opinions. Separate signal from noise. A signal is feedback from someone who has lived what you're trying to build, wants your growth, not your submission, speaks with reason, not emotion. Noise is everything else. Most comments, most looks, most gossip, most online reactions. Noise is loud. Signal is quiet. And if you treat noise like signal, you will constantly feel anxious, defensive, and unsure. So the Stoic practice is simple but powerful. When you feel triggered by someone's opinion, pause and ask, is this signal or noise? If it's noise, you let it pass like wind. If it's signal, you examine it without ego. This alone will cut your emotional stress in half. Now let's go deeper. The second Stoic rule in this part is one most people resist. Stop trying to be understood by everyone. This need to be understood is one of the biggest sources of mental exhaustion. You explain yourself, you justified your choices, you defend your boundaries, and still they misunderstand you. Epictetus warned against this exact trap. He taught that when you try to control how others interpret you, you lose control of yourself. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Some people are committed to misunderstanding you, not because you're unclear, but because accepting your perspective would force them to question their own, and that is too painful for them. So the Stoic doesn't chase understanding. They focus on alignment. They ask, am I acting according to my values? Am I acting with reason and integrity? Am I at peace with my choices? If the answer is yes, they stop explaining. Silence becomes a form of self-respect. This doesn't mean being cold, it means being grounded. Now pause for a moment. If this part resonates so far, take a second and reflect. Who are you still trying to convince? You don't need to answer publicly. Just notice the name that comes to mind. That awareness alone is progress. Now, let's talk about something even deeper. The Stoics believe that caring too much about opinions is a sign of misplaced attention. Marcus Aurelius wrote something like, "You are distracted not by events, but by the meaning you assign to them." When someone criticizes you, the words themselves are neutral. It's the story you attach that creates pain. They don't respect me. I look foolish. I'm not enough. Those stories are optional. So the Stoic trains the mind to interrupt them. Instead of reacting emotionally, they observe. They say, this is an opinion, not a verdict. This is a perspective, not a truth. This is their lens, not my identity. That mental distance is everything, because the moment you stop merging your self-worth with external opinions, you regain control. Now let's apply this to modern life. Social media, work environments, family expectations. You post something, no response, or worse, criticism. The old habit is to internalize it. The Stoic habit is to zoom out. Ask, will this matter in a year? Does this define my character? Does this affect my ability to live with virtue? If not, release it. You are not required to carry every emotional weight placed on you. This is Stoic emotional discipline. And here's a powerful reframe that will help you immediately. People judge based on who they are, not who you are. Their fears, their insecurities, their regrets. A calm person threatens the insecure. A disciplined person exposes excuses. A focused person irritates the distracted. So when you feel judged, don't assume you are failing. Sometimes judgment is confirmation that you are evolving. Now, let's anchor this part with a practical Stoic exercise. For the next 7 days, practice this rule. Before reacting to any opinion, internal or external, ask 3 questions. Is this within my control? Does this align with my values? Will responding improve my character? If the answer is no, you let it go. No explanation, no defense, no emotional labor. This practice builds something rare, inner authority. People begin to feel it before they understand it. Your calm, your restraint, your quiet confidence. And here's the paradox. The less you chase approval, the more respect you naturally command. Not because you demand it, but because you no longer need it. We'll go even deeper in part 3. In the next part, you'll learn why emotional detachment increases influence, how Stoics remain unshaken in social pressure, the habit that makes other people's opinions irrelevant over time. If this video is helping you think differently, do one small thing. Like the video. It helps this message reach someone who is still trapped in overthinking. And if you're ready to build a calm, unshakable Stoic mindset step by step, subscribe. You're exactly where you need to be. Take a breath. You're not here to be liked by everyone. You're here to be at peace with yourself. Most people think they care about what others think because they are weak. That's not true. They care because they are attached. Attached to approval, attached to validation, attached to an identity that depends on how others react. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus once warned that the moment you hand your self-worth to someone else, you become their prisoner. Not physically, mentally. And most people are living in that prison without realizing it. They check reactions, they replay conversations, they imagine judgments that were never spoken. They adjust their behavior to avoid disapproval, not because they want to, but because they feel they have to. This part is about breaking that attachment permanently, not by becoming cold, not by becoming arrogant, but by becoming free. Here's the uncomfortable truth the Stoics taught. You don't suffer because people judge you. You suffer because you believe their judgment defines you. Once that belief dissolves, the power disappears. Let me explain. Imagine walking past a stranger on the street. They think something negative about you. You don't feel anything. Why? Because you are not attached to their opinion. Now imagine a close friend, colleague, or family member judges you. Suddenly it hurts. Same judgment, different attachment. The pain was never in the opinion. It was in your dependence on it. The Stoics trained themselves to detach their identity from external perception. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly, I am not harmed by what others think, only by how I respond. This is the foundation of Stoic freedom, and it begins with one critical realization. Your identity must be internally generated, not socially assigned. Most people live backwards. They ask, who should I be so others approve of me? Stoics ask, who must I be to respect myself? That question changes everything. When your sense of self is anchored internally, opinions lose their grip, not because you stop hearing them, but because they stop shaking you. Here's where many people misunderstand Stoicism. Detachment does not mean indifference. Stoics still care about being just, being disciplined, being honorable. What they refuse to care about is unearned emotional authority. They refuse to let random opinions decide their mood. Ask yourself this and answer honestly. Why does someone else's thought deserve control over your nervous system? Why should a comment, a look, or a rumor decide your peace? The Stoics would say it shouldn't and it doesn't unless you allow it. Now, let's get practical. One of the strongest Stoic exercises for detachment is what Epictetus called role clarity. He taught that each person has two roles, the role you perform in the world, the role of the observer who chooses how to perform it. Most people confuse the two. They become their role, their job title, their reputation, their image. When that role is criticized, they feel personally attacked. Stoics separate themselves from the role. You are not your reputation. You are the one acting with intention within it. This separation creates emotional distance and power. When someone criticizes you, the Stoic response is not panic, it's curiosity. Is there something useful here? If yes, adjust calmly. If no, discard silently. No drama, no defense, no emotional collapse. This is mastery. And here's a line you should remember. The less you defend yourself, the more untouchable you become. People expect explanations, justifications, reactions. When they don't get them, they lose leverage. Silence, when chosen intentionally, is one of the most powerful Stoic tools. Not silence from fear, silence from clarity. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly. He reminded himself that people speak from their conditioning, wounds, and ignorance. Why absorb what was never meant for you? Now pause here for a moment. Ask yourself, and this matters for your growth, which opinions do you still feel compelled to answer? Write them down mentally. Those are the last chains you haven't broken yet. And breaking them doesn't require confrontation. It requires redefinition. Stoics redefined success internally. Success was not admiration, it was alignment. Alignment between values, actions, and reason. If those three were in harmony, external judgment became irrelevant. Think about how liberating that is. No more performing, no more proving, no more explaining, just quiet consistency. This is why Stoics often appeared calm, grounded, and unshakable. They were no longer negotiating their worth. They had already decided it. And this leads to a powerful paradox. When you stop caring about what others think, people often respect you more. Why? Because detachment signals strength. It tells the world, I am not controlled. People instinctively feel this. They sense when someone is acting from inner authority instead of approval seeking. This is the kind of presence that changes rooms without saying a word. Now here's a crucial engagement moment. Don't skip this. Ask yourself, which part of your identity still depends on approval? Career? Relationships? Social image? Drop your answer in the comments. Not for me, for you.
awareness is the first act of freedom. Before we move forward, remember this. You don't need to harden yourself. You need to anchor yourself. Stoicism is not about becoming numb. It's about becoming stable. And stability comes from knowing exactly where your worth lives. Inside you, in your discipline, in your principles, in your restraint, in your courage to live honestly. In next part, we'll bring everything together. You'll learn the daily Stoic habits that permanently dissolve approval seeking, how to walk through judgment untouched, and how to live with a calm confidence that no opinion can take from you. If this part helped you see yourself more clearly, take a second to like the video. It helps this message reach others who are still trapped in approval. And if you want the final part where everything clicks, make sure you're subscribed, because the freedom you're seeking is closer than you think.
There comes a moment in every life when something quietly shifts. You still hear opinions, you still notice reactions, but they no longer decide who you are. This is the moment Stoicism prepares you for. Not a life where people stop judging, but a life where their judgments no longer reach you. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself that the applause of others is nothing more than the clapping of hands. Noise, passing sound, gone the moment it appears. Yet most people live as if that sound defines their worth. By now, you've seen the trap. You've learned how seeking approval hands control to strangers. You've learned why the mind suffers when it tries to please everyone. And you've learned how Stoics shift their focus inward, toward character, intention, and self-command. Now comes the final step. Living it, not as a philosophy you think about, but as a way you move through the world. Because freedom from opinion is not loud, it's not aggressive, it doesn't announce itself, it shows up as quiet confidence. Let's talk about what that actually looks like. A Stoic does not walk into a room wondering how they will be received. They walk in asking a different question. Who must I be here? Not liked, not admired, not validated, but aligned. Aligned with values, aligned with reason, aligned with purpose. This single shift changes everything. When your behavior is guided by inner standards instead of outer approval, something remarkable happens. Your presence becomes steady. People feel it, not because you dominate the room, but because you are not trying to extract anything from it. No approval, no reassurance, no attention. That absence of need is powerful. And here's a truth most people never realize. The more you chase respect, the less you receive it. The moment you stop chasing, it begins to follow. Epictetus taught that freedom begins when you stop trying to control what is not yours. Other people's thoughts are not yours. Their moods are not yours. Their misunderstandings are not yours. So why live as if they are? Think about how much energy has been spent replaying moments in your mind, rewriting conversations, worrying about how you sounded, how you looked, how you were perceived. All of that energy was never improving your character. It was draining it. Stoicism returns that energy to where it belongs, to your actions, to your discipline, to your growth. Here's a powerful exercise Stoics practiced, and you can practice it today. Before you speak, act, or decide, ask yourself this quietly. If no one ever knew I did this, would it still be the right thing? If the answer is yes, proceed without hesitation. If the answer is no, pause. This single question dismantles the need for external validation because it forces you to confront the truth. Are you acting from principle or performance? Gemini-era algorithms aside, this is what human beings respond to most deeply: authenticity, consistency, inner alignment. When your behavior no longer changes based on who is watching, people notice. Not immediately, not loudly, but over time. And time is the Stoics' greatest ally. Now let's address something important. Stopping caring about what others think does not mean becoming cold, rude, or detached from humanity. Stoicism is not indifference, it is clarity. You can still listen, you can still learn,
You can still adjust when feedback is useful. The difference is this: you choose what enters your mind. You don't absorb opinions automatically. You evaluate them. Does this criticism help me grow, or is it simply noise? Does this praise reflect my values, or is it just comfort? Both praise and criticism require the same response: measured distance. Marcus Aurelius warned himself not to be inflated by praise or crushed by blame, because both are external. The Stoic walks between them, calm, grounded, unshaken. If this perspective is resonating with you, take a moment here, pause the video if you need to, and ask yourself honestly, where in my life am I still performing instead of living? Drop your answer in the comments if you're willing. Your reflection may help someone else more than you realize. Now let's talk about what freedom actually feels like. It feels like moving slower in a rushed world. It feels like silence where there used to be anxiety. It feels like making decisions without needing permission. You stop explaining yourself unnecessarily. You stop defending every choice. You stop needing to be understood by everyone, because you understand yourself, and that is enough. This is why Stoics were feared and respected in equal measure, not because they were loud, but because they were unmovable. Anger didn't push them, praise didn't pull them, opinion didn't steer them. They lived from an inner compass, and you can too, but only if you're willing to practice. Not once, not when it's convenient, every day. Small moments matter. Choosing silence instead of reaction, choosing principle instead of popularity, choosing growth instead of comfort. These are invisible choices, but they compound, and one day you wake up and realize something profound. You are no longer living inside other people's heads. You are finally living your own life. That is Stoic freedom. If this series has helped you see yourself more clearly, then let this be the moment you commit. Subscribe to Real Stoic Word, not for motivation alone, but for mastery, for clarity, for discipline, for a mind that remains calm in a world addicted to noise. Share this video with someone who is trapped by approval, and comment below with one word that represents what you're choosing from now on: peace, freedom, discipline, clarity. Whatever it is, choose it deliberately. And remember, you don't need permission to live with dignity. You don't need approval to act with virtue. And you don't need a clause to walk your path. You only need control of your own mind. Stay grounded, stay unshaken, stay stoic.